Football, the beautiful game, the global obsession, the one thing that can make grown adults cry over a missed penalty. But why do we love it so much? To answer that, let's bring in some of history's greatest minds, philosophers who spent their lives thinking about human nature and society. Let's start with the founder of the Western philosophy. Plato wasn't exactly a fan of entertainment for entertainment's sake. In the Republic, he argued that society should be focused on the pursuit of wisdom, justice, and truth. Probably not watching people kick a ball for 90 minutes. He wrote that the masses are easily distracted by mere shadows of reality. Yeah, he literally thought most people lived in a cave, staring at flickering illusions instead of pursuing higher knowledge. But to be fair, Plato wasn't against sports. He believed physical training was important for the guardians of society, just not in the form of a bunch of people screaming at a referee over a controversial offside call. He would probably say, true virtue is found in discipline and reason, not diving for fouls. Alright, so Plato thought football was a distraction, a mere shadow on the wall. But his student, Aristotle, he had a much more down-to-earth view of the world. Aristotle believed in something called virtue ethics, the idea that a good life comes from practicing excellence in all things. And guess what? Football is excellence in motion. Aristotle believed excellence is not an act, but a habit. That's right. Aristotle would totally respect the hours of training, discipline, and skill building that go into football. Aristotle also had this idea called the golden mean, the perfect balance between extremes. He'd probably say the best footballers aren't just fast or strong, they're a balance of speed, intelligence, and composure. He believed that the virtuous man finds the balance between recklessness and cowardice, between aggression and passivity. Aristotle also believed that humans are social creatures. We thrive in groups, and teamwork is what makes us great, which is basically football in a nutshell. A great team isn't just a bunch of superstars. It's about chemistry, trust, and knowing when to pass instead of trying to score a wonder goal from 40 yards out. So, Aristotle might have definitely respected football. He could have seen it as a showcase of skill, balance, and teamwork. But what if life isn't about balance? What if it's just about domination, struggle, and raw power? Time to bring in Nietzsche. Nietzsche had this big idea, the will to power. He believed life is about struggle, ambition, and pushing beyond limits. You don't just exist, you compete, fight, and conquer. Yeah, this guy would be all about football as a battlefield. He'd love teams that fight to the last second, that push beyond exhaustion, that never accept defeat. Nietzsche's perfect footballer? The Übermensch. The Superman who rises above the weak, ignores the rules, and dominates through sheer force of will. But Nietzsche wouldn't just admire the players, he'd love the chaos of football itself, the unpredictable madness, the shocking upsets, the way a game can go from despair to euphoria in seconds. This is pure Dionysian energy, wild, emotional, uncontrollable. He believed that one must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Nietzsche could also explain why we have football hooligans. In his works, he discussed the herd mentality, where weak people blindly follow leaders seeking power through the group rather than themselves. He wrote that the individual has always struggled not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. So in Nietzsche's world, football isn't just a game, it's a battlefield for the strong to dominate the weak. He'd love the intensity, the passion, the fights, the mind games. But what if you thought life and football was actually meaningless? Time to bring in the ultimate existentialist, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre was all about existentialism, the idea that life has no inherent meaning, so we have to create our own, and football. It's exactly that. Every year, millions of people suffer because of 22 strangers kicking a ball around. Logically, that should be absurd. And yet, Sartre wrote, everything has been figured out except how to live. Football is totally irrational, and yet we choose to believe it matters. We choose to feel joy, to feel pain, to live and die with our teams. Sartre may have called this bad faith, pretending something is meaningful when deep down we know it's not. But hold on, he wasn't just about existential despair. He also believed in radical freedom, that we define ourselves through our actions, and what is football if not a constant stream of choices? He wrote that man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. Footballers make choices, coaches make choices, and fans, we choose to care. We choose to suffer. We know it's all a bit ridiculous, but we do it anyway, and that's existentialism. Alright, Sartre thought football was absurd but meaningful in the way all human suffering is. But what if football isn't just about suffering? What if it actually teaches us about life, morality, and justice? Time to bring in the one philosopher who didn't just think about football, he actually played it. Albert Camus. Camus grew up poor in Algeria, and before he was a famous writer, he was a goalkeeper, and he once said this, "All that I know most surely about morality and obligations I owe to football." That's right. While other philosophers were sitting in cafes arguing about being and nothingness, Camus was out there diving for shots, learning about fairness, teamwork, and resilience the hard way. Like Sartre, Camus believed life was absurd, full of randomness, injustice, and no inherent meaning. But instead of getting all moody about it, he embraced it. And football, it's a perfect symbol of that absurdity. He wrote that the absurd is the essential concept and the first truth. Football, like life, is unpredictable. Sometimes you dominate possession for 90 minutes and still lose. There's no fairness, no guarantees, but you play anyway, because that's what life is about. Camus was also big on rebellion, standing up against injustice, even in a world that doesn't care. And isn't that exactly why we love underdog stories? He wrote that rebellion alone discovers that we have nothing and that we must demand everything. In other words, never stop fighting even when the odds are against you, which is basically the entire philosophy of any club that has ever faced relegation. Alright, Camus thought football was a metaphor for life's struggles. But what if football isn't just a game? What if it's a tool used to distract the masses from their real problems? Time to bring in Karl Marx. Marx's whole deal was class struggle. He believed the rich kept the working class distracted so they wouldn't revolt. And if he were alive today, he'd 100% say football is just another way the elites keep us entertained while they hoard wealth. He wrote that religion is the opium of the people. Perhaps if Marx had lived to see the modern Premier League, he'd say football is the real opium. Instead of rising up against inequality, we scream about whether a ball crossed the goal line. But Marx wouldn't just stop at saying football is a distraction. He'd argue it's an economic system of exploitation. The owners, they rake in billions. The players, mega rich too. But the fans, they're the ones paying for it all. He would argue that capitalism takes that which is joyful and turns it into profit. Every club is a business. Every match is a product. Every transfer is an investment. So Marx thought football was just another way the rich control us. But what if our obsession with football runs way deeper into our subconscious minds? What if football isn't just a sport but a psychological battlefield? Time to bring in the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. Freud believed humans are full of unconscious desires and repressed instincts, things we really want but aren't allowed to express in daily life. And where do we let all of that out? Football. He wrote that the mind is like an iceberg, it hides more than it reveals. In normal life, you can't just scream at strangers, wave your arms around, and chant songs at full volume. Football lets us unleash the emotions that society has been forcing us to bottle up. But let's talk about the dark side. Why do some people take football too seriously? Like riots, fights, conspiracy theories about referees. Freud would call this the return of the repressed. When emotions get too bottled up, they explode. He wrote that unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. So for Freud, football isn't just a sport, it's an emotional release and a weird subconscious power struggle. You don't just support your team, you're emotionally tethered to it in ways you don't even realize. So after all of this, what have we learned? Football is a shadow on Plato's cave wall, a pursuit of excellence for Aristotle, a battle for dominance to Nietzsche, a meaningless obsession for Sartre, a moral lesson to Camus, a capitalist machine to Marx, a psychological outlet for Freud. But most of all, football is human. It's joy, suffering, passion, and meaning all in 90 minutes. So the next time someone asks why you care so much about football, just send them this video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.